Welcome to We Build Great Apartment Communities, the only show dedicated to the process and strategies for transforming apartment buildings to thriving communities. I am your host, John Brackett, and welcome to the show. All right, folks. Hey, so welcome to We Build Great Apartment Communities. I have another great episode, great podcast here. I have here another great guest. His name is Leslie Awason. And, you know, Leslie has a very unique background. Leslie is the Director of Operations and co-founder of Xsite Capital Investment, LLC. He manages the company operations, market data analytics, cash flow, budget analysis. So very interesting story. Leslie bought his first property in 2017. Then he transitioned into multifamily investing in 2019. And in 2019, Leslie partnered and invested in a 192-unit apartment project as a limited partner. And in 2020, with his partner, he bought a 49-unit Class A institutional-grade apartment building in Washington, D.C. So Leslie is a nurse and anesthesiologist in Baltimore, Maryland. And so very excited to have him on because now we get the perspective of someone that has been doing this now for a couple of years, but hasn't been doing it for 20, right? Yet they've purchased in different capacities as a limited partner and also as a general partner. So at one point he started his career as a passive investor, and now he is a general partner operator. So Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine. So, tell us a little bit about why you decided to start off as a limited partner, right? Or as a passive investor. How did that path come about? Which I think is very smart, by the way, but how did that path come about?
So it's funny because, so in 2019, when we started Xsite Capital Investment, we were out there working hard, trying to get a deal on our own, trying to get on the general partnership side of a deal on our own. And so we came across this opportunity. The deal that we ended up being limited partners on, we actually had the opportunity to be general partners on it. But along with occupying a role on the general partnership side, we had to bring a certain amount of capital into the deal. And a couple of our investors that were bringing most of the capital backed out in the last minute. So at that point, we were stuck. We could not raise the rest of the money needed to be part of the general partnership side. So we ended up investing our own money on the limited partnership side because our philosophy is once we find a great deal, we move our own money in there too so that we are equally yoked with our investors as well. So that's how we ended up on the limited partnership side. But it's a great deal and it's paying great. So it's working out great for us.
Where tell us a little bit about the investment. What market, what made you excited about it, and what made you finally, write a check?
So this deal is in Marietta, Georgia. It's 192 units in Marietta, Georgia. It's a B-class asset. At that point in time, we were getting close to the end of 2019, and there was a lot of talk about the recession coming, and there's going to be a downturn in the market. Everybody was expecting it because the cycle had been up for a while. So at that point, our target was to target B or A-class assets as far as investments because based on our research and data, those assets tend to do a little bit much better in the recession climate. So once we had that opportunity to get on board as general partners, we actually went down to the property, took part in the due diligence. So we got to underwrite the deal ourselves, see everything that was in there, went down there and met the team. And this is a great team that we work with. The team there really are advisors. So for us, it was a no-brainer. Everything checked out, and since I found multifamily investment, since I discovered multifamily investment, I realized that for me personally, it's the best vehicle for me to invest my money. So I moved all of my money that I had in other classes and put it in apartments. And I'm looking forward to do whatever else I have left in more apartment buildings because I feel like the returns is more stable and I can control it and I understand the business.
Right. So talk a little bit about, your comment around you feel it's the best investment for you, right? For you personally. Yes. So why do you say that?
Well, because I understand it. Right. One of the great things that I love about multifamily investing is the numbers. right? I love the whole numbers aspect of the business where you could look at a property, look at the numbers, and you could tell a story based on the performance of that property, right? And you could pretty much predict and know where that property is going based on the analysis of the numbers and analysis of the markets. You could have a really good idea. You have more control over the asset, right? You could foster appreciation. You could save money on taxes by investing in the asset. Prior to this, I was doing the normal route of doing the W-2 job and investing in a 401k, and I did not know what that 401k account held. When I finally got to it and started reading about finances and understanding finances, and went and looked at my 401k account and tried to understand what I was investing in, I was more confused than ever. But this is what we're being taught, to
right.
Throw money in there, just let it grow. If it tanks, you drop more money in there. And I realized that even in those accounts, there are limitations to what you can invest in. They kind of decide what kind of funds or where your money wants to go in. So for me, to get here, I worked hard to get here. I didn't come from anything. So everything that I have, I had to pay a tremendous price to get it. So I value the sweat and efforts that I made to get here. So for me, I'd rather invest in something that I understand, that I see that can grow, that I have a little bit of control over, and that I understand. So I understand multifamily, and it makes sense to me.
Hey, I really appreciate that. So I'm gonna unpack that a little bit. Okay, Leslie, yeah. I want to unpack that for our audience. So one of the things that I heard you say that really stood out is you started off doing what most people in the United States do, and most people around the world for that matter, right? Is they make investments in their 401k because that's what is typically marketed to us as a general audience, right? And right. Wall Street is very good at that. I completely get it. Wall Street is probably the best sales machine in the entire world. But you also said something that I found even a little bit more profound. And you're a smart guy, right? I mean, you've studied for many years. Okay.
Yes.
You have a job that requires a major degree of skill.
Yes.
Okay. With anesthesia. Okay. Major degree of skill. So you're a very smart guy. Now imagine if I heard you correctly, you're putting money in a 401k, right? A lot of it. You're probably maxing that thing out. And yet when you took the time, you said, wait a minute, I need to really start understanding what I'm investing in. When you took the time to really learn that and unpack that, you couldn't understand it, right? So can you imagine? So let me touch on that a little bit, right? And this is really, really common. I hear this all the time. I hear it all the time. But one of the key things that stands out when I have these kind of conversations, and very smart people, right? Very smart people. I think one of the things though that really stands out is, when you make the time to really start understanding where your money's going, the story starts becoming very telling, right? And I think one of the challenges with other forms of investments is they're not very transparent. So I'll use myself as an example, okay? When I was younger and I was in my early 20s, I saved quite a bit of money, made some investments, really got lucky, okay? Mm-hmm. And I made an investment because my grandmother did it. Okay, now this is a true story, okay? Uh-huh. I think it was $130,000, okay?
Wow.
And I invested it with my grandmother's stockbroker.
Uh-huh.
Okay, this is an absolute true story. Now, when I did that, okay, I had very little understanding of, I did understand what I was doing. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I did lose a bunch of money. I lost probably about 20% of the value, okay, of that investment, 20%. Wow. And that broker in hindsight directed me into some international, very high risk investments, right? It was a mutual fund. When I look back on this in hindsight, right? So hindsight's always 20/20. Okay. I always tell myself that, hey, that's my fault. That's my responsibility, right? I'm not going to pass blame on anybody else. Mm-hmm. But fortunately, I learned from that. But the biggest lesson learned, and this is what I hear you saying, is that, unless for me, if I had, $100 million of cash or $1 billion, I am not on the same playing field as another investor buying into a stock, right? A Fortune 1000 company, right? Because very different, right? They're making massive investment. They put someone on the board, okay? And they have very unique access to information that I'm just not privy to. And that's just the reality, right? That is the reality. So for me, I wanted to make investment in things, in this case, real assets, where I had transparency, right? And real estate was the closest that I found to having that control that you talked about. So, I really appreciate you sharing that, but it's not an uncommon story, right? It's just not an uncommon story. So, okay. So you learned that through, once you understood how to, underwrite, multifamily assets, then you started making investments, inside of multifamily assets. So talk to us a little bit about that first deal. Okay. That first deal that you did, in this case, it was a, Class A product, multifamily product that you made an investment in. Walk us through kind of the thought process, the underwriting, and ultimately what made you pull the trigger, where's the asset located, and how did you put that deal together?
All right. So the first deal, the deal you're talking about, the 49 unit in Perth was DC. This is a 49 unit Class A asset that was built in 2011. It was built by the original owner to be sold as condos, but for some reason the condo market was not that. I guess at that area in that period of time was not that strong, so they decided to start running it as apartments. So they've been running it as apartments since 2011. But these are condo developers that develop a lot of condos in the market and then exit out of that market and leave. So our partners on the deal found the deal through their broker relationships, and then they brought the deal to table. We looked at the numbers. The numbers look great on the deal. It's and one of our exit strategies on the deal is to run it for a few years and exit out as condos. Right now, where that market is, it's far from where it was in 2011. Like, that whole area is exploding like crazy. Like, it's built. There's a lot of investments going over there. Then Amazon came to town. Then we have like the Walter Reed Center, which is like a couple miles down from that building. So everything is exploding. So the building right now is set at a good point where we can hold for a few years and then ride this wave of the recession that's coming and then evaluate the market. We could keep running it as apartments and go up on the value still, or we could exit out as condos. And if our condo strategy, which is our number one strategy, with that strategy, we're walking into the building with $7.1 million of equity. So it's a very, very unique deal, which is very specific for the DC market. And that can work in the DC market, but it's not something that could work in every other market because of that condo conversion exit. And it's a building that is already zoned for condominiums. It has everything there for condominiums. So it's just about doing the final phase of the paperwork and selling one unit after another. So with that, we're able to go into a stable Class A asset in a stable Tier 1 market and able to exit out and give our investors returns that are higher than 20% average annual. So it was a no-brainer of a deal. It was a very easy deal to present to our investors. So we're very grateful that we're able to present this kind of opportunities to our investors, because most of our investors, like you just mentioned from your examples, are W-2 employees like ourselves, and there are people that we've had to educate and show some of these opportunities that are available out there. So being able to bring these opportunities back to some of the people I work with, this is like one of the most gratifying experiences ever that I'm going to. Because like you mentioned, like you say in your talk there, one thing, it's amazing, right? We go to work every day as an anesthesia provider. I have to make sure that every patient I'm taking care of does not die in my hands. Right. It takes a high level of skill, a certain amount of detail in order to be able to manage patients with complicated conditions under this. But a lot of us are afraid to manage our own money.
Right.
We could manage people's lives in like most of the most critical situations and do it with calm and ease. But when it comes to our money, we don't want to hear about it and we just digress it to somebody else. So being able to do this and being able to be in this space and being able to educate other people, it makes complete sense to me. And this deal was one that we were happy to present to our investors.
Why do you think that is, though, right? I mean, you said something that I find really interesting, and that is your comment around, as a general public, okay, being afraid to manage money. Why do you think that is for most people, right? We'll take a lot of time to research a lot of other things, okay, and make investment of time, energy, and resources into a lot of other things. But when it comes to our own, personal finances, that is often not the case, which is one of the reasons why in the United States, we're really net spenders versus net savers, right? So why do you think that is, just from your experiences talking to other people and just kind of seeing this trend? What's the reason for that?
John, to get to this point that I am here talking to you, it took a lot of work on myself, a lot of reflection.
Sure.
I had to get a lot of junk out. I do believe it's because it's simple. It's because of the information that has been implanted in our minds. It's because of the information that we've consumed. You did mention here that Wall Street does an excellent job of marketing. All of this, there's a huge marketing play here. It's like, it's this dream that has been sold to us. And for me, the reason why I started questioning this was because in 2008, starting off in my healthcare career, in 2008, I saw nurses that were getting ready to retire lose like 50% of their retirement.
Oh, wow.
So that was what scared me, right? But even with that, I did not take action until 2017 because even at that moment, the same marketing, the same stuff that gets fed into your head is the same thing that you go by. And anytime you're in doubt, you go to your default mode. Your default mode is the more information that has been passed over to you. So right. It's just about the exposure and the information that we have. Some people are blessed. They grow up with entrepreneurial people around them and they get exposed to different things. Others are not. I never had an entrepreneur next to me. My own level of success that I saw was somebody going to school, getting a degree, getting a job. So whenever I faced any more difficulties, I always felt like I needed to go get another degree or need to get another job. Again, and it's just because of what I had been told, with the information that has been passed over to me. So that's why I'm so passionate about telling people about this stuff that we do and educating people, because I can see the light bulb goes off in someone's head when they get it, and maybe they can go out there and do something different, or even if it's the stock market you want to invest in, because there's nothing wrong with the stock market, but you just got to understand what you're investing in. And most of us do not understand it.
Interesting. Hey, I really appreciate the feedback. I mean, I think that it's very good wisdom, right? Coming from experience, coming from personal experience. So I think it's great. So I'm going to pivot a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. And start talking about, where you see the opportunities in this market, because you have a very, very unique perspective. Okay. And the great thing about your perspective is it's coming from someone who has not been doing this for 20 years, right? So you're going to have a very unique perspective because you're very hungry. You're very sharp. Okay. You're starting to create some great connections. And the markets that you're looking to invest in fairly well, right? I can tell you're very analytical. You do a lot of research. So where do you see the opportunity moving forward?
By the way, thanks for all those great compliments. I don't know if I fit all that, man.
Hey, a little humility never hurts either. Let me add that one.
I'll take it. But for me, what I think is it goes back to the same fundamentals. Again, what I've learned is real estate is all about fundamentals. The opportunities are always going to be there once you do things the right way from the foundation moving forward. I see a lot of opportunities remaining in some of the strong markets. With everything that's happening in COVID, it's devastating everyone. But what I'm seeing from, at least from the data that I'm reading, is the markets that were strong prior to COVID, most of them will remain strong after COVID. And the ones that were weak, that were a little weak prior to COVID, are going to be devastated because as a result of this. So a lot of those markets that I already talked to you about, like the Houston, Texas markets, which I love a lot, the Carolina, Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham areas. So you keep seeing those popping up in every report. And if with everything that's happening, there's still a lot of construction, a lot of development going in the pipeline. Prior to COVID, based on some of the stuff I was reading, there was a huge wave, a sudden migration happening. A lot of people moving down south. A lot of younger people moving down south, and a lot of younger people holding off on buying their first homes and wanting to rent. So which made the multifamily a very strong and stable asset. I believe after COVID, that trend is going to continue. It might accelerate a little bit more. Because people want to go to areas that are a little bit more affordable than the northern states or the western states that are getting too pricey.
Plus the weather, right? Weather's always weather's always a big issue. I remember my dad used to tell me, if you don't need to freeze, if you don't have to live in cold weather, why do it? I never forgot that. Well, hey, I really appreciate that perspective. So, you touched on a couple different things as it relates to COVID and the impact of COVID. Why do you like some of the markets that so we talked about things on more on a more of a macro level, right?
Yes.
So you talked about the Carolinas on a macro level. You talked about Houston on a micro level. Yes. There was one more market that you shared with me, but I don't recall what that was. What was it?
Atlanta, Marietta, Georgia.
Georgia. That's what it was.
That's a market where we have the.
So one of the common things that I hear people talk about, right, when they talk about where are they going to be investing, where are they going to be placing money? The common themes are markets that are emerging, okay, job growth, population growth, and of course a inexpensive cost of living, right? Yeah. Those are the common themes that I hear. But how do you take that information and dissect it to something a little bit more tangible, to where you know how to spend your time and energy trying to figure out where you want to make an investment long term?
So we use a system that is taught by one of our great mentors, Mr. Neil Bauer. It's called the Real Focus System, and he has it on Udemy for free, so anybody can check it out. We use that system, and that system is detailed, and along with other reports that we subscribe to and use. But it breaks down everything to the job growth, to population growth, the kind of numbers that you want to see for each market that you go into. So we use that, and then we dive in deep, go to the markets and talk to people, go to the EDC of each market and meet with them and talk to them about development projects that are coming into those markets. So we do a lot of research going on before we select whatever markets that we go into. But that system that Neil Bauer teaches is a very simple system that's available along with a spreadsheet that anybody could use and start that research from that. So those are some of the parameters we use.
Awesome. And so can you repeat that for our audience where they can find that? Because I appreciate you sharing that, because it can be valuable to some people.
It's the Real Focus System. It's on udemy.com, and it's taught by Neil Bauer.
Okay, great. Okay, so I appreciate that, right? Because here's one of the things that I've seen over the years.
Yes. Is
you have a lot of discussion about emerging markets, but it's very difficult for people to quantify what that means, right? Because there's so much discussion around it. Well, you've given them a resource now where they can take this concept, and even for experienced operators out there, oftentimes it's about, how do I find a tool that I can use as a reference point to get my research done faster, right? Yes. So I appreciate you sharing that. This business, I think, is very unique, in that the outcomes that you create usually are in direct proportion to how hard you're willing to work and how smart you're willing to work, right?
Yep.
Do you find that to be true?
Oh, absolutely. It's rewarding, right? Because when you put in the work, you see the results. Sure. Again, and the results, don't quantify the results in number of doors or this or that. Growth happens. Some people might be in the business for a year, 18 months before you finally get your first property, but the growth happens on a daily basis as you put in the work. And those that accumulates as you build the foundation. Then you see the crazy things that are happening around you. But the other great thing about the business is, John, we get to talk to guys like you. It's a great business. You get to talk with people with like a great mind, people that are looking to advance themselves. You get to interact with some of these people, So I feel right at home here talking to all the people that I meet in the business. So it's great. I'm really glad that I found it, and I'm glad that I'm in the space.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the compliment, and I agree. I've met some tremendous people in this business. What's really interesting is the majority of my investor partners, I've known for years, right? Mm-hmm. Years and years, probably 10 years plus, and it's really unique to be in that kind of situation where you actually get to grow with people, right? Most of them I know all their kids.
Yeah.
Several of them going through high school now. So I think those are very unique opportunities that this business affords. You get to meet some tremendous people.
Absolutely.
You meet some people that are not as tremendous, but that's with every industry, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. I think by and large, when you are actually interacting with people that are active and that they're focused on pursuing objectives and goals and dreams, for the most part, folks that are actively pursuing, very specific objectives, they're not spending a lot of time doing things that don't make sense. Exactly.
And the ones that usually don't last in the business. So the ones that succeed and go forward are the ones that are genuine and do things the right way. So, and those are the people that we want to be close to. Those are the people that we want to copy and learn from.
Yeah, I really agree. Well, we are approaching the end of the show, okay? And man, I really appreciate this conversation because I always love getting different perspectives, right? One of the things that I've learned in this business, which is kind of counterintuitive, but if you're always around folks and interacting with folks that, that have purchased literally thousands of units, I think you forget about the simplicity in the business that has created success, right?
Absolutely.
But then on the other side of that, if you are always around and creating association with folks that are still trying to figure things out, okay, then you get stuck as well, right? So the point is, perspectives really matter because you constantly need to be, I think, exposing yourself to new ideas, new ways of doing business to create either momentum or to move you through barriers that in some cases we don't even know exist, right? At least I can speak to myself. So this is why, man, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your successes. And I think you've been able to achieve some really cool things in a short amount of time, but I can see why, right? Because you're very focused, you're very particular with details, and I can sense that you're the kind of person that once you get something in your mind, you don't mind doing the work or putting the effort behind it to create that outcome, right? And that makes for, I think, a lot of your success. So I want to thank you for coming on. I look forward to speaking with you when you have achieved even greater success than what you have now, and I know that's coming real soon. How can people get a hold of you, Leslie, if they want to reach out and learn a little bit more about what you're doing, what markets you're looking to move into next?
Before I give my contact, I just wanted to add that a lot of what you see, a lot of any growth that we're having is all in part due to my two wonderful partners, Mr. Julius Oni and Mr. Tenny Tolofari. It's three of us that form Xsite, and all the growth that is happening is because I'm working with these two amazing guys. And so you could reach any one of us on our website, which is www.x as in X-ray, S as in Sam, I-I-T-E. That's Xsite Capital.com. Or you could also find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Leslie Awason is my name. We also have a meetup group called the Exciting World of Multifamily Investing. Please join our meetup group. We have a lot of special guests coming, and we have a Facebook group of the same name as well. So I look forward to chatting with any one of you. And I'm also going to drop my cell phone number here. Feel free to text me. It's 301-655-4708. Again, it's 301-655-4708. And John, thank you so much for having me on your platform.
Not a problem. And so can you share that Xsite meetup group one more time? I think that's going to be a really valuable resource for our audience.
Absolutely. It's called The Exciting World of Multifamily Investing Meetup.
I love that. The Exciting World of Multifamily Investment Meetup. Man, that's great. That's a great marketing twist. So Leslie, before we end our podcast here, do you have any questions for me that you think might be able to add value to our audience that I may have not touched on?
I can't think of anything, but I'm going to ask you a question, John. What has been one of your greatest challenges that you faced as an apartment investor?
Man, that's a great question. So fortunately, I have a lot of them. So I can share with you quite a few, right? And they all come from trying to break through different barriers. So inside of business, if I just leave multifamily investing outside of business, if I just take out the industry and just focus on business, every time I try to move through we all hit plateaus, right? For a lot of different reasons. And what I've learned to do is once I feel like I've hit a plateau, to really understand why. And the most difficult thing is being honest with myself, right? Because, we can be, I think as entrepreneurs, we can be really good at lying to ourselves a lot, okay? For a lot of different reasons, right? It could be fear, it could be doubt. But I think the greatest challenge, also the greatest opportunity for growth, is being willing to really be honest about what's limiting you from taking that next step, breaking through the barrier, okay? And I've learned over the years that, as long as I'm willing to really spend the time and really trying to figure out what that is, okay? But do it quickly, right? Like don't procrastinate, but do it quickly. And then be honest with myself about what's creating that limitation, what's creating the barrier. And the better that I've gotten at doing that, the quicker my results, right? The quicker the growth. So that would be, I think, the biggest challenge. I think, frankly, it's one of the bigger challenges for most entrepreneurs, but I can only speak to myself. And so that's been something that over the years, I really work hard at getting good at. But a lot of it too comes from being willing to reach out to people and say, hey, I'm experiencing this and I need another opinion, another perspective. Let me run this by you. What do you think about this? Right. And that's always been very valuable, Yeah, and sometimes I've had people that say, John, that's absolutely insane. Don't do that. And on other times, I've had people say, hey, that's absolutely brilliant. Move forward. And in either instances, they've been wrong, right? I've had some where, hey, I don't think that makes a lot of sense to me. Don't do it. But inside, I knew that it was the right move and I did it and great results, right? The other side of that too is, hey, don't do it. Okay, I did it anyway. And sure enough, I shouldn't have done it. So, I think a lot of that is experience too. But from just my own, personal experiences, really getting good at being honest about dealing with the truth in front of me, right? That's what I call it is. And I say this inside of our company is, look, deal with the truth in front of you. Just deal with it. Right? Deal with the truth in front of you. And, hopefully I can continue to get better at that. Yeah.
It's about being honest with yourself and having those mentors that you could always get feedback from.
Yeah. Being honest with yourself, man. It's critical because the only person you're really lying to is yourself, right?
No, that's true. That's absolutely true. I totally agree with you.
And it's what makes it so challenging is it's easy to do. Yeah.
Because that's an easy path to take, right?
Of course.
And towards something else instead of accepting it. And once you learn to accept or understand it, it really helps.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that makes it easier is a willingness to accept the fact that discomfort is a major opportunity for growth, right? And on the other side of that discomfort is an entirely different world. right?
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head right there, John. I love it. I love it. It's like on the other side of fear is where your highest growth goes to, like the discomfort you feel and you push through to it. And that's something that I learned and I started doing it on a daily basis. When I feel uncomfortable, when I feel that fear, I push through. And the amount of growth that has come just from doing that one thing alone has been amazing.
Yeah. So, and it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal. I think, what's really interesting is one of the reasons why I love reading biographies about different business people, and sometimes not just business people, but just different people throughout the world that have done very unusual things. Okay. But what's really interesting is every single book that I've read on someone that has done something significant, and that could look many different ways. They've always come up against challenge, right? Okay. And they've always found a way to persevere. So what I always find interesting is when you go to school, college, okay, there's very little emphasis on your ability to create resiliency inside of yourself. Very little. In fact, there's none. There's none. Yeah. There's none. And one of the reasons for that is, our education systems, the platform is really designed to make us amazing employees, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges you face coming from a W-2 to try to get into the entrepreneurship, because it's, like I said, it's the mental stuff that has been fed to you. That's the default that you have. So understanding that this challenge is just an opportunity for growth is something that you really got to fight and build your mindset and fight through. So, but when you do it, man, it's a beautiful feeling on the other side. Yeah.
So I have, and I'll just make this comment, right, and then we'll conclude this. But I love reaching out to students that oftentimes they reach out and they want to, they want to gain experience with our company, right? And so I'm very open to doing that. Sometimes we can do it, sometimes we can't, for a lot of different reasons. It doesn't matter how much or how little we pay. The amount of time and energy that it takes to train and develop someone is massive, right?
Yeah.
But when we're able to do that, and when it does make sense, one of the questions that I constantly get, whether we bring them on as interns or not, is, what is the one thing that if I were to be an entrepreneur and do what you do, or own a business, really, they don't use the word entrepreneur, own a business, right? What is the one thing that I really should be focusing on? And most of the time, it's a great question, but I could tell, because usually they're in school, either juniors or seniors in college, right? The emphasis, I can tell that the question in their mind, it's usually around what they're studying or academics, right? Which makes a lot of sense, okay? Because I can relate from personal experience. Mm-hmm. But my response is always something that they never expect. And I tell them, if you're thinking about starting your own business, okay, go run a marathon. Okay, go run a marathon. Prepare for it, finish it, and then at the end of the marathon, you'll know whether or not you still want to pursue your business opportunity.
Absolutely. I love it, man, because you're saying a lot of things that apply to my journey, to our journey to get to where we are. So it makes a lot of sense. I resonate with a lot of stuff you're saying. Yeah.
Well, man, I really appreciate you being on, Leslie. I wish you continued success, and I can't wait to talk to you next when you break through another barrier and, move into a new space. So I want to thank you for being on and sharing your story, man. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for letting us have this conversation. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I learned a lot from you, and I hope we keep the conversation going.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So take care of yourself, all right?
All right, thanks, John.
Clarity of purpose creates our greatest competitive advantage. When we transform apartment buildings to thriving communities, we improve how people live and create assets with high profit margins. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this up with a friend. I'm John Brackett, bringing you things you can implement right away.